Tonight, Chicago is on edge. A federal judge has refused the Illinois Attorney General's emergency request to block Trump's deployment of National Guard troops. The fight over militarized raids is spilling from the streets into the courts, and the people of Chicago are paying the price.
A federal judge in Chicago has refused the Illinois Attorney General's request to immediately block the Trump administration from deploying hundreds of National Guard troops to the state, instead saying she'll hear arguments on Thursday. This is in contrast to Portland, Oregon, where a federal judge appointed by President Trump did issue a restraining order to stop Trump from sending troops. Illinois Governor Pritzker said Monday he would not back down.
Governor Pritzker is drawing a line in the sand, blasting what he calls an invasion tearing apart families, detaining U.S. citizens, and targeting people based on how they look.
Since the beginning of this invasion, families have been snatched up off the streets or removed from their homes, zip-tied and detained for hours, including especially U.S. citizens and legal residents of our state.
Mayor Brandon Johnson has now signed an executive order declaring ICE-free zones. City property will no longer be staging grounds for raids.
They was terrified. The kids was crying. People was screaming. They looked very distraught. I was out there crying when I seen the little girl come around the corner. Because they was bringing the kids out too. Had them zip tied to each other. That's all I kept asking. Where's the morality? Where's the human? One of them literally laughed. He was standing right here. He said, them kids.
ICE's tactics are escalating. Helicopters repelling agents onto rooftops. Blackhawk raids. Reports of children zip-tied on Chicago streets. Even elected officials aren't safe.
He has constitutional rights. Do you have a sign?
No, you need to leave.
For me.
Turn around. Turn around and leave that.
He is under.
I'm going to arrest you.
You are going to be placed under arrest.
Do you have a sign to get your warrant for him?
Fuentes was cuffed on camera for simply asking about a warrant. Journalists, too, are being targeted. CBS reporter Asal Roy described an ICE agent firing directly into her car with chemical munitions.
An ICE agent that was masked pointed his weapon and shot directly at my car. He saw my window was open and he shot right here. You can see the point of impact right there.
You can see white powder exploded on the hood of her car, windshield, and even engulfed the inside.
And I was sitting right there with my window open. A lot of it went inside of my car and on my face. I immediately felt it burning. I started throwing up.
The ACLU has filed lawsuit after lawsuit, describing what's happening as extreme brutality. Ed Yonka of the ACLU warns the violence is escalating, not de-escalating.
There's no emergency and there's no justification for having guards or troops here in the city of Chicago or in the Chicagoland area. You know, they were citizens, including zip-tying children out in the streets of Chicago, separating them from their families and then hauling them away as well. You know, this is just, and we have not yet to this hour heard any justification or rationalization for why it was that they needed this kind of overwhelming force. There's not been charges brought against anybody. There's been no explanation. There's been no production of a warrant in public to justify why an entire apartment building was attacked, even if there was a person or set of people in the building that they wanted to try to detain. They didn't need to literally render 100 people unhoused because they've created a situation where they can't go back into the building.
As Trump hints at invoking the Insurrection Act, experts warn it would be unprecedented and unlawful. Even Chicago police officers have been tear-gassed by ICE during protests.
They put out this propaganda reel before they ever explained what the actual rationale for the raid is. So the most important thing for them was to have HD video of what was happening, not to actually speak to why this happened. And what what you see in that video, and I think what you hear from members of the community, is a complete terror, a sense of terror that their community, a working class Black and brown community, is being targeted in this way by federal forces using this kind of militarized force. And it is, it's causing, panic and terror and fear all across the community for many. There are people who are not leaving their homes every day out of fear. There are children who are not going to school. Restaurants and cafes and stores in some of our neighborhoods are suffering economically as the result of this fact. And all of this is in service of a reckless policy that is not in any way, shape, or form making the city of Chicago or the Chicagoland area any more safe.
Propaganda reels before explanations, communities terrorized before answers, and children left traumatized in the crossfire. This is Chicago under siege.